Hello everyone. Today I wanted to go over 5 tips that have helped me and potentially could help you with LeetCode and cracking technical interviews. So I've got my list here. Let's get started. For number 1, really it's just starting with easy questions and building from there. One common mistake I made was I would start with easy questions and then I would sort of jump around randomly. I oftentimes would like to choose on LeetCode, there's a little random question. It will ping pong you around. Sometimes it will put you on a medium question or a hard. This can be actually a big problem because it won't allow you to really build, because the idea is to build first, getting used to string and arrays, stacks and queues, and then chances are it builds from there. Because for example, you're going to be using stacks and queues for your breadth or depth first search, which you use as you go on to more advanced algorithms. So there's a great resource on NeetCode where it has, I'll put a picture here as to a good strategy to use. I wish I'd known this sooner and just focused on getting really good with easy questions and then building from there, not trying to jump into medium or hard questions. So have a strategy there. So that's tip number 1, start with simple and build from there. The next, number 2, would be don't memorize. It's better to actually internalize. And what that really means is instead of trying to remember or memorize the specific syntax or exactly a solution, it's better to sort of get an idea of the underlying pattern or data structure that is used. And so now, oftentimes when you look at a question, you'll see it presents some constraints as to the runtime or the memory. A lot of times you can actually look at that and go, oh, it's asking for me to find an item in a sorted array. Well, then clearly that, especially if it's asking for a certain runtime, chances are you can tell I need a binary search here. Or you might see a problem and go, oh, I need a hash map, I need a queue. So part of it is recognizing the data structure and then the actual pattern, whether it's a certain kind of sorting or search or just a way how to solve it. Basically, the basic steps or recipe for that. So that's helped a lot, especially because when you see one question, there's also related questions. So there's a question that, for example, that's like move zeros, and it's very similar to another question where it's basically like a 2-pointer, right? So anytime there's the pattern, two pointer. So you could see there's probably 100 questions or problems that really boil down to 2 pointers, having a slow and a fast pointer in an array or a string or something like that, or a sliding window. So don't memorize, internalize. Next is really just consistency and patience. Consistency, where try to allocate a bit of time each day. Instead, this is one mistake I made too, is I would start to do LeetCode and then I would do it for a weekend and then I would stop for a week or two and then I would completely forget the progress that I made. So it's just like anything you do, playing guitar, going to the gym, make sure that you have a consistency. And along with that consistency, you're gonna need a lot of patience. It's just like dieting or going to the gym. You're not going to see results immediately. It's going to take time and you're going to hit your head against a wall. You're going to hit a lot of plateaus and frustration. Just keep going through it. Maybe even use spaced repetition where you go through problems and you could even note down problems that you had a particular hard time with, and then come back to those at a later date. Next, we've got simulating interviews. This could be doing a mock interview with a friend. There's also websites where you can do mock interviews. It's also good to maybe put a timer and see how quickly you can time yourself. You could also film yourself. That's what I do, is I actually, just like the solutions on this channel, I will typically film myself. I will go over the algorithm beforehand, but then I'll live code it from memory, or I'll live code it from just having done it. So a lot of times you'll see as I'm coding the solutions, I'll make mistakes, and it just helps me, which is kind of the reason I started this channel, was to help others, but also to keep my coding skills sharp. And I'm no expert by any means. I'm still improving, trying to get better. Another tip that goes along with simulated interviews is maybe just even actually doing interviews. You could do interviews with companies that maybe are not as high stakes. And that's a really good way to practice. There's really no, in my experience, there's no substitute for an actual real interview with a company. And there's just really nothing like it. And so I've learned a lot. Every single interview I've gone to, I've remembered what they've asked me. And a lot of times I've gone into those interviews having practiced a lot, and then I see something I'm completely new. And previously, when I would try to memorize, I would fail because I just was, oh, I haven't memorized this one. But recently I got a question I'd never seen before, and I was able to derive the solution just based on, I probably need a hash map. I was able I had practiced the logic of solving some of these questions to the point where I was able, some of them, well, this is an easy question, so I was able to derive it, but I'd probably have a hard time if it was a medium or a hard. The next tip is to write on paper. This is another thing that's helped me a lot, is just to write out the solution, digest it, really break it down, ask why, instead of copying what you see, really understanding why we're doing certain steps or why certain things are happening. And so I'll take a lot of time to write it down and really break it apart. And that's really helped me to internalize a lot of problems and solutions. Now, I know I said 5 points, but I just realized another key point, which has been really helpful for me, which is when I would first look at a problem I'd never seen before, I was really stringent on not looking at the solution. I thought I had to solve it myself. So I would pull up an easy question I'd never seen before, and I would spend hours trying to solve this problem. However, the issue with that is you may waste a lot of time. So I would suggest that you spend no more than 30 minutes to an hour, maybe even less. If you are kind of struggling, look at the solution. Don't just copy the solution, but take a look at the solution, see why it works, try to ingest it, internalize it a bit. And then once you start to establish those patterns, you'll see other questions that are similar. And you'll say, oh, this is a question that has to do with sorting or binary search or a sliding window or two pointers or depth search, like a depth search or dynamic programming. So it will help to really strengthen that recognition of different patterns. Because when you look at a lot of coding problems, they really only boil down to, there's really like 6 or 7 domains that things boil down to. Whether it's like dynamic programming or a sliding window or array or string, or there's main categories that problems fall into. And so you'll be able to eventually bucket these or partition these into different areas. So that is really the gist. I'll probably make other videos as I continue my journey on LeetCode to get better, but feel free to throw into the comments tips that have worked for you. Feel free to comment anything I may have missed or gotten wrong. And thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully this video has helped you somewhat. Thank you.